Now that I've got over 100 videos on this channel, let's revisit some hidden gems that didn't get the audience they deserved. These aren't just my worst performers, they're the ones I genuinely think are underrated. Let's dive in. This first one holds the record as my absolute least watched video at only 6 views. Quite fitting, really, since it's about an epic failure.
The epic failure of Fyre Festival. Picture this. It's 2017, and you're scrolling through Instagram. Suddenly, you see supermodels frolicking on pristine beaches, promising the cultural experience of the decade on a private Bahamian island once owned by Pablo Escobar. Welcome to Fyre Festival, possibly the most spectacular festival failure in history. Organised by entrepreneur Billy McFarland and rapper Ja Rule, Fyre Festival promised luxury accommodations, gourmet meals, and performances by major artists. Tickets ranged from $1,200 to an eye-watering $100,000 for the full VIP experience. But when attendees arrived in April 2017, they found disaster movie scenes instead of paradise. The luxury villas were actually soggy disaster relief tents. The gourmet food was infamously just sad cheese sandwiches in styrofoam containers. And most of the advertised artists? They'd already pulled out. The event was promptly cancelled, leaving hundreds stranded at an unfinished site with inadequate food, water, and shelter. The disaster was so monumental it spawned not one but two competing documentaries. Netflix's Fyre, the greatest party that never happened, and Hulu's Fyre Fraud, giving us all the chance to witness the chaos from the comfort of our non-leaky homes. As for the organisers, the festival burned through a staggering $26 million, which McFarland still hasn't paid back. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison for wire fraud. But hold on to your luxury wristbands, folks. In 2022, fresh out of prison, McFarland announced a supposed Fyre Festival 2.0. Yes, because nothing says, trust me with your money, quite like planning another festival after your first one became synonymous with catastrophic failure. The price tag for this round of potential disappointment? A modest $1,400 to an absolutely bonkers $1.1 million. Because apparently some people haven't watched either of those documentaries. And poor Ja Rule? Well, let's just say his social media declaration that Fyre Festival was not a scam aged about as well as those cheese sandwiches in the Bahamian heat.
A story like that deserves more than 6 views, don't you think? Next up is a tragic tale where someone actually died. Sitting at just 11 views, I reckon this story needs more attention.
This US pilot died chasing a UFO. In January 1948, Captain Thomas Mantell, an experienced World War II fighter pilot, met his end in a most peculiar fashion, chasing what he believed was a UFO through Kentucky's skies. When multiple reports came in about a strange flying object, Mantell and 3 other pilots were dispatched to investigate. You see, this was slap bang in the time of the UFO craze in the US, where seemingly everyone and their grandmother was spotting mysterious flying discs. Newspapers were splashed with wild reports of flying saucers, people were seeing strange objects everywhere, and the public imagination was running wilder than a squirrel on espresso. The US military was fielding hundreds of UFO reports, and everyone wanted a piece of the extraterrestrial action. So while the rest of his squad levelled off when they ran low on oxygen, Mantell pressed on, climbing to over 25,000 feet in his P-51 Mustang, without proper oxygen equipment. His final radio transmission described the object as metallic and of tremendous size. Shortly after, his plane spiraled down and crashed, making him perhaps the first person to die in pursuit of a UFO. So what was the mysterious craft that cost poor Mantell his life? After investigation, the Air Force concluded it was likely a skyhook balloon, a top-secret high-altitude research balloon. Turns out Mantell wasn't chasing little green men after all, but rather a very large, very terrestrial weather balloon. So whenever you chase the extraordinary, don't forget about the ordinary realities of life, like breathing.
From one dead soldier, we move to a few hundred in the shortest war in history. Only 16 views so far. That means the total watch time is still shorter than the actual war we're about to learn about.
How to lose a war in half an hour. Imagine going to war and losing in just half an hour. That's exactly what happened in the shortest war in history. In 1896, the British Empire controlled Zanzibar, a small but wealthy island off the coast of East Africa. When the pro-British Sultan died under suspicious circumstances, his successor, Sultan Khalid bin Bargash, took the throne without British approval. Many suspected Khalid had his predecessor assassinated, and the British weren't about to let him stay in power. They gave him an ultimatum: step down or face war. Khalid refused and barricaded himself inside his palace with about 2,800 soldiers and a handful of artillery. Meanwhile, the British assembled warships, marines, and an overwhelming show of force right outside. The deadline passed. At 9:02 a.m., the British opened fire. Within minutes, the Sultan's artillery was destroyed, his palace was in flames, and his soldiers were either dead or fleeing. By 9:40 a.m., just 38 minutes after it began, the war was over. The Sultan? He escaped through a back door. British troops casually walked in and installed a ruler of their choosing. Casualties? Zanzibar, over 500. Britain, 1 injured sailor. The Anglo-Zanzibar War remains the shortest recorded war in history, and Sultan Khalid made history, just not the kind he was hoping for.
I genuinely don't understand why only 31 people have watched this next one. It's an inspiring story featuring a female pioneer who was centuries ahead of her time, plus it includes the origin story of computers.
Ada Lovelace, the 1800s genius who predicted computers. Think computers are a 20th century invention. Think again. The concept of a modern computer was dreamt up way back in the 1800s, and at the heart of it all was a brilliant woman, Ada Lovelace. Born in 1815, Ada was no ordinary lady. While most people at the time were busy worrying about crinoline skirts and steam engines, Ada was busy predicting the future of computing. No Wi-Fi needed. She met Charles Babbage, a man with a knack for building incredibly complicated machines. He designed the analytical engine, basically a mechanical computer. But here's the kicker. While Babbage saw it as a fancy number cruncher, Ada saw its true potential. She realized it could do way more than just math. It could be programmed. And so, in 1843, she wrote what's now considered the world's first published computer program, an algorithm for Babbage's never-built machine. Yep, before keyboards, before coding boot camps, before error messages haunted our dreams. Ada was already ahead of the game. Of course, some historians argue Babbage wrote most of the program, but let's be real. Ada was the one who truly got what computing was all about. She even predicted computers could create music and art. Even TikToks. Okay, maybe not that one. So next time your laptop crashes, just remember, you can't blame Ada for that. She saw the future, but even she couldn't predict Windows updates.
For this final video, I can somewhat understand the lower view count. It tackles a topic that triggers controversy, and it holds uncomfortable truths many prefer to ignore, but that's precisely why it needs more attention.
Sea level rise won't stop in 2100. Here's why. You've heard that sea levels might rise 1 meter by 2100, right? Well, don't breathe out just yet. That's just the warm-up act. In political discussions, it often sounds like 2100 is the grand finale. But in climate science, that's basically tomorrow. The real drama? It's playing out over thousands of years. Let's rewind. The last time Earth was around 2 degrees Celsius warmer than in pre-industrial times, the Eemian period, 125 millennia ago, sea levels didn't rise just 1 or 2 meters. They were 6 to 9 meters higher. That's why scientists are obsessed with keeping the change below 2 degrees, because we've seen what happens otherwise. Even just 1 meter of sea level rise is already devastating. Entire island nations and flat countries like the Maldives, Bangladesh, or the Netherlands could become uninhabitable. And sadly, that's already the optimistic scenario. So what's causing this? Well, water expands when heated. A minuscule effect in your coffee mug. A global disaster on the scale of oceans. And then there are the world's biggest freezers, Greenland and Antarctica. As they melt, they add water to the oceans, drop by drop, until coastlines and cities start vanishing. Even if we stopped emissions today, this will continue for thousands of years because their sheer size makes the oceans painfully slow to react. Current estimates say sea level rise could reach 2 to 5 meters over the next 2,000 years. And if we burn all fossil fuels, we're talking about 70 meters or more. That's London, Tokyo, and New York as scuba destinations. So when someone says only 1 meter by 2100, just remember, it's not the end. It's barely the beginning.
That's my selection of videos that deserve a second look. If you enjoyed discovering these hidden gems, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching.